everyone! Welcome to 42. Today's fortune is the star cycle, or in other words, the life of a star from its birth to its death. The life of a star starts from a nebula, or a nebulae. And these nebulas are basically huge clouds of gas and dust, and they form these stars. From its formation, it can then take two paths. Depending on the size of the star, depends on what path it would take. Larger stars actually have shorter lifespans than smaller stars or mid-sized stars. Because of this, stars have varying lifespans. Some live hundreds of thousands of years, others live millions of years. This really just depends on their anatomy and how they're structured. And basically, what determines their size is the amount of hydrogen they have in their core, which they use as fuel in their life. A star's lifespan is very unbalanced. For 90% of the time, the star is mostly trying to make hydrogen into helium, basically nuclear fusion. This stage of their life is called the main sequence. After the main sequence, this is where we start to see the different paths the star can take depending on their mass. After the main sequence, low mass stars go into a stage called the red giant. In this stage, the star begins to grow. The temperature can change and it also glows brighter. This temperature change causes it to turn red. After the red giant stage, the low mass star starts to go into a phase called the planetary nebula. After losing the hydrogen in its core and using up the hydrogen from the outside, the star's outer layer begins to blow away and expand, creating this shell of really hot gas. Over time, the planetary nebula begins to scatter itself into space. It starts to basically disappear. When the core is the only thing left of the star, this is when it's called a white dwarf. Now, white dwarfs, interestingly, are about the size of Earth actually, but they are also very faint in light. These white dwarfs slowly radiate heat, and that means over time, it eventually cools down. When it does cool down, it becomes something called a black dwarf. Information on the star cycle may not include the black dwarf because it is just a theoretical object. This is because the universe has not lived long enough to see a black dwarf in the Milky Way. For high mass stars, their life looks a little bit different compared to the low mass stars. So obviously the low mass stars have, after they've done the main sequence, they go into the red giant. Similarly, the high mass stars go into a phase called the red supergiant, which is basically the red giant phase, but on a way larger scale. High mass stars in this phase are much bigger than the low mass stars, and they also go under more extreme fusion. Because of the extreme fusion, this can then lead to something called a supernova. Now, supernovas are essentially big explosions that happen in space. They mark the death of a star almost. Supernovas are very, very visible and bright. You could probably see them from Earth if one ever happened. After the supernova happens, the high mass star has two paths it can take from here. It can either become a proton star, which is basically what's left of the star after the supernova, or it can become a black hole, which is the same thing. These are created through supernovas, and these essentially suck in dust, gas, particles all around it. And obviously black holes are just one giant mystery. I've always thought of it as traveling to a dimension. If there's any inaccurate information, please just let me know and I'll do my best to correct that. Sources and references will be linked either in the video itself or in the description. Thank you for watching. Bye!